Uluslararası Kenan Rifai Sempozyumuna devam ediyor.
We continue to the International Kenan Rifai Symposium. There is no poem to hold the hot coal of a fire-blowing mountain. There is no such thing to hold or obstacle the true morals. And there is something in the material world that will help the people to become brothers. Just like the circles in the water expand after a stone is thrown, they will also be expanding the helping hand to all of the universe. As nothing is possible without a master, the taming of the nafs can also not happen without a master. And that master is the wise, learned, mature person. So coming here, we took different paths, but we all had the same intention, coming here and participating the symposium. So it's not about being a Kadiri, Rifai, or Mevlevi. It's about finding the human being. Once that human is found, it means everything else is found. The tarikats should not be separated as Kadiri, Rifai, Melami, this or that. Our tarikat is the tariq of Muhammad. We don't look for any other tariqs or paths or ways. We're looking for the human. And let's continue with our third session. The chair of this session, Professor Bruce Lawrence, has already been seated, and I would like to thank him for being so kind to honor the time and has been seated already as a broadcaster of 30 years. I'd like to thank him. And the first presentation will be by Assistant Professor Dr. Cangüzel Zülfikar, and the topic will be Kenan Rifai's teaching and training methods. And our second speaker will be Assistant Dr. Juliane Hammer would also be with us, but she had an excuse and a health problem, so she will not be joining us today. We shall later read it. And the other presenter is Kenan Rifai, bringing Mevlana Rumi to the 20th century, to be presented by Professor Dr. Omid Safi. We now have another short video. I must have gotten really old. We will be watching Azize teyze from Ankara. We used to call her Azize teyze at all times. She had great discourse. She had a great storytelling talent. She could talk for hours and hours, and one would never need to drink even a sip of water. She would talent. She was beyond this universe. I knew her daughter, I cannot recall the name right now, but she was TRT's first, okay, what was the name? Nuran. Miss Nuran was TRT's, Turkish Radio TV's first announcing speaker. She was an elder sister of mine. I couldn't bring the name immediately, and she had a son as well. And Azize teyze, Auntie Azize, was a very holy person. Now we are going to watch her video.
...32 yaşına geldim. İşte bir İstanbul'a gittim artık Beyci'ye. Ne olursun ben bu efendi hazretlerini göreceğim. Haber.
I went to Istanbul and asked Behice to see Hazret Kenan Rifai. So Behice said to me, I was taking ablution, don't you know the adab of dergah? So at the beginning of the streets where Kenan Rifai was living, I saw a sign, and the sign says Saadettin Efendi Street, and I said to myself that I'm going to be very happy here, because Allah always tells us the truth, and that's what Allah was saying to me. So I went before the mansion, the door was open, so I sort of pushed it and went inside. And there were stairs, and on the other side there was the garden. And I said to myself, Efendi Hazretleri must have been going down from the stairs, so without taking any permission I shouldn't be going up. So I said towards the garden side. So I saw the garden, there were two tombs there, that's the Valide Sultans and Hayri Hanım's. So I recited Fatiha for them, and then a lady called Mummy went down the stairs and asked my name, and I said, tell them that there is a garib coming from Ankara. So I went up saying Besmele, saying Allah. They took me inside a room. I'm actually waiting. Ya Resulu, a voice told me. So when I was waiting, I heard this voice, and they took me out of the room because they told me that he was coming. So it's October the 29th, Republican Day, and they were wearing their coats and their hats with their hands in their pockets, and they called me in by showing he called me in, showing his hand, and they introduced me and said, this is the aşık, the lover, Azize. And Kenan Rifai said, didn't say anything else, didn't say welcome. He was dressed in street clothing. So I just went out and asked them, where are you going, my master? How can you leave me? I have actually gone through so many valleys and mountains. Where do you go, leaving me here? So I'm screaming. And he was actually going out, and he caught me at the start of the stairs, and he said to the others around, where did you find these crying people? And he didn't actually leave my hand. He was holding my hand all the time. At that very moment, as he actually took me from the doorstep, holding me, and made me sit, I actually completely forgot about anything, and I forgot that I was with my master. I started talking to Allah. I said to Allah, you have brought me here. I have actually recited poetry. Have you read my poetry? And a voice comes, yes, I have, my beauty, yes, I have. And I say to Allah, I wrote letters to you and threw into the sea. Did you receive the letters? And the voice says, yes, I did, my beauty, yes, I did, my darling. And I say to Allah, why are you making me burn so much? And I say, if you want now, I can sacrifice my life for you. And the voice that belongs to actually our master says, Azize, look at my face. But I don't see him. I don't see him at all. And then later I thought there was someone sitting next to me, and I decided to have a look at that side. And then I realized two hands. And he wasn't there in body. I just saw two hands only. And I looked and I said, there is Allah. Allah gave me his hands. And then I kissed his hand, and then the magic appeared. He appeared inside, and he said to me, I have taken you from past eternity. I didn't know anything about past eternity. I stood up. He made me walk. He took me to the door, and he said to me, I also love you. You come here because I love you, because I invited you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to come here.
My name is Professor Bruce Lawrence. I'm very privileged to be here, and especially want to thank Cemal Hoca for having invited me and making it possible to be here. What I could not have anticipated beyond the glory of this setting and all the experiences, including visiting the Maqam and then also the Maqbara of Kenan Rifai yesterday, was to see all these films. And this one we just saw now from Aziza, where she mentions that the experience she had when she was in the presence of Allah Ta'ala was burning, burning. And I was thinking of the line from Rumi, Hasle ishq az insan sukhan pesh neest, sukhtam, o sukhtam, o sukhtam. So for those who don't know Persian, you're going to hear more about it from this fellow. But, and you will hear a translation in Turkish, but briefly in English, the sum total of ishq, of love, is but 3 words. And it's the same 3 words. I burn, and I burn, and I burn. So we are privileged to be here today and to see some burned and well-crusted souls who also have minds and will tell you about their experience of Kenan Rifai. I want to say I'm very sorry that Juliane Hamner isn't here, not only because she's ill, but because she has such a marvelous presence and such a clear, fresh way of thinking about tasawwuf. And of course, she is also the holder of the Kenan Rifai professorship in Sufism at the University of North Carolina, which is near where I teach at Duke University. So I'm very sorry that she can't be here, but I hope that she is burning somewhere else and that you will hear at a future event. The 2 people who are here, and they've made a promise that because of the time, they will honor the not 20 minutes, but a little bit more than 20 minutes each that they will have, not only because it makes it easier for you, but also because we too want to hear the musicians who will come after us. So the benefit is that we get to go first. The beauty of it is we all get to hear the musicians and the storytellers after us. So let me not delay any longer, and I think we're going to have, would you like to have Omid go first? Would you like to go first? So we're going to have, we honor women, but we're going to have the men go first today. So we will have first from Professor Omid Safi, and I will tell you that there's nothing about him that I can say that's true. So I will just exaggerate and say he's the kindest, best person I've ever seen, which actually is true. But you may think that's not possible, but he is. And he also is a deep spirit and a clear, interesting, engaged person on many subjects, but none more so than Kenan Rifai and Mawlana Rumi. So Please, Omid.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, friends, for this gathering. Thank you for the occasion to commemorate and honor Kenan Rifai. And thank you to our dear mother, Cemal Nur Hoca. It's not often in life that you actually get to see your mother 30 years into your life. So I'm going to start with a quote from Kenan Rifai. He says, "Spiritual knowledge is not enough for those who carry the responsibility of guiding. How can a murshid or a teacher carry out a relationship with his or her students if he doesn't know anything about the social life of his time?" The world around us is changing, my friends, and is changing rapidly, and the pace of change continues to accelerate. If we think about the dervishes in the Devran, in the whirling, we have to be like them. We have to keep one foot, the one that's closest to the heart, stationary, even as the other foot keeps circling the world. All of us are caught up in this combination of stillness and adaptation. If we want to become and remain relevant, we have to model the dervishes. If we are to somehow keep bringing the timeless teachings of tasawwuf and make it relevant in a timely way to each and every generation. Very few teachers have had to undergo a more turbulent process of adaptation than the Ottoman Republic period Sufi master Kenan Rifai. Sufis have found themselves living through very turbulent times before, whether we're talking about giants like Attar and Hazrat Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi living through the Mongol period, or whether we're thinking of Amir Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi living through the colonial period. We've lived through trauma, and many have even been a part of restoring a sense of barakah to a world that seems to have gone mad with conflict. Kenan Rifai's age also saw first the rapid modernization of the Ottoman Empire, followed by World War I, the ascendancy of Ataturk, and the destruction of centuries-old models of Sufi life, sultanate, and caliphate. Let's take some time first to ponder his Sufi teachings, and then to come back about some of the ways in which Kenan Rifai himself kept one foot stationed in timeless teachings, and with the other foot kept turning to make his teachings relevant. So we'll start with Kenan Rifai and Rumi's Masnavi. Other Mevlevi teachers have called Kenan Rifai's Listen the most important book to be published in the English language in the last 70 years. All of us, scholars, students, and those of us who seek this path of burning, burning, burning, are indebted to Cemal Nur Hoca and the friends in Turkad for having subsidized the translation of this wonderful book titled Listen. Usually the Masnavi, Mawlana's masterpiece, the Quran in Persian, as it is called, has always been read as a journey. In the first volume, it's always read as a journey from the state of the ney, the reed flute, to the station of Imam Ali. The Masnavi is not so much a book as it is a path that each and every single one of us have to walk. We begin with the state of the ney, feeling cut off and isolated, alone and hurting. We want to get to that station of the perfected human being, the Insan Kamel, the station of Ali. The story of the ney, the reed flute, is well known. We're cut off from our divine origin. We are in anguish. We burn and we yearn to get back home. Our primordial experience suffering through this fire of love. Holes are burnt into us. Holes have to be burnt into the nay. And it's then and only then that we can experience the kiss of the musician who breathes spirit, air, life into us. It's only when we're made hollow of our own ego that there's an opening created into which the Spirit of God flows. In short, there is suffering, real suffering to endure on this path of love. But it's only to empty of ourselves, of our selfishness. So we start with loneliness, agony, and feeling cut off because the Prophet told us to speak to people at the level of their understanding. Speak to people where they are. And for most of us, where we are is a state of feeling cut off from the divine presence. As Mawlana Rumi himself says of his own ugly, crude, ill-mannered, no adab disciples, if they were already beautiful, he says, I myself would have become their disciple. Right? So we don't set out on this path of burning because we're already beautiful. We come because we have the aspiration that by the grace of God, the Prophet, and the friends of God, we hope to become beautiful. The Masnavi is a journey from nayness, from the state of being like the nay, broken, to becoming who and what we already are, and we must become again. The story of Imam Ali is, of course, already well known. Ali defeats a mighty warrior in battle, subdues him, and sits on his chest to finish him. The defeated and humiliated warrior spits on the face of Ali. Rumi says was the of every prophet, and every he gets up from the chest of this fallen warrior and puts his sword back in its sheath. The warrior wonders why Ali would relinquish at precisely the moment of victory. And Ali says that he is the Lion of God. He will only be moved by the face of God, not by his own whims and anger. He is the one that has conquered his own ego. He is the real mountain, kuh, not some piece of straw, kah, that's going to be blown here and there by the winds of emotion. This transition from nay to Ali to the Insan Kamil is familiar to us from many Masnavi commentaries. But here Kenan Rifai does something new and unexpected. He sees the end in the very beginning, prefiguring the Insan Kamil already being present in the broken nay. Even when he's addressing the story of the nay, he can already witness what is awaiting us at the end of the path, the fully realized human being. Kenan Rifai says, citing Yunus Emre, there is inside me an I, hidden within I. It is the secret that we cannot see in ourselves, but the friends of God can see in us. They see a beauty inside us that we are blind to ourselves. This is why we need those mirrors. It's not unlike the story of Fariduddin Attar, tells us about the simorgh before the birds have even set out. But of course we won't know the secret until we set out on the path. Kenan Rifai goes on to say about the nay, the reed is also a symbol of the er-Rifâî, those that have spiritually arrived. These are people united with God. So we feel separated, but we're actually already with Allah. They are also people who've experienced the countless suffering of exile in distance from God and the countless torments of loss before arriving at their station. The arrived, also called the Evliya, communicate their torment in burning tones like the reed flute in order to awaken people who are complacent. What awakens us from the state of sleep and slumber is nothing but ashq, nothing but divine love unleashed upon this world. For Kenan Rifai, this love is the power of God propelling the seeker beyond the love of material world and bodily existence. He goes on to say, it's when a person attains the secrets of dying before death, that is, when you mature enough to annihilate the bad and ugly states of yourself, that the veil of forgetfulness, of heedfulness from God is removed. Love of God, this burning love, is the force that brings a person such maturity. It's when the heart is filled that you attain to the greatest love. He also ends the story of Imam Ali by coming back to that same line of poetry. There is inside me an eye, hidden within I. Ali goes on to say, I am illuminated and a shadow made out of light. My only function is to raise the veils before God's servants and Allah. For that reason, I'm not a veil, but a remover of veils. I am a sword of God, filled with jewels. I quicken, I do not kill those who meet me in battle. He says, those who are aware of the reality of the situation know that by my hand you are freed from selfishness, from your satanic qualities, and you attain to eternal life. So now that we have some sense of Kenan Rifai's deep immersion in the Masnavi, I want to come back and talk about 3 major adaptations that as this novice, unlearned person, I have seen in Kenan Rifai's life and teaching. These are 3 themes that to me are skillful ways in which Kenan Rifai adapts to the turbulent world of the 19th and the 20th century. The first one is a clarification of the nafs, of the ego self, not merely as the self, but most specifically as our selfish tendencies. This has been one of the common criticisms of Sufi teachings, particularly from feminist scholars and others, that historical tasawwuf has had a tendency to denigrate the body, to not sufficiently value family relationships, and that the negation of the self can actually be a distraction from that desire to live a whole and holistic existence. It's not so much that Kenan Rifai is saying something that hasn't been said before. It's more the subtlety, and if you would excuse the irony, the directness with which he states it. So let's go to the story that I know is a favorite of Jamal Nur Hoja's, the story of the Chinese and the Greek painters. Each one has to come up with a beautiful painting. The Chinese come up with a masterful painting. All that the Greeks do, and the Greeks are of course the Sufis, is that they polish and they polish and they polish the wall until it is so illuminated that the image that shines on their wall is even more beautiful than the original. Right? This is of course a reminder for us of the need to keep polishing, keep emptying the self of our selfishness. When Kenan Rifai Hoja gets to this particular story in the Masnavi, this is the commentary that he offers on it. He says, that room is the heart of the Sufi, which is pure of all dust and rust, like the most brilliant of mirrors. It's such mirrors that is the heart of the advanced Sufis that the divine self-disclosure occurs in. If you ask what it is that they clean to bring their hearts into such a state, they cleanse it of rage, of arrogance, of selfhood, of hypocrisy, of lust, and of passion. Now, this is a familiar story to us. We know this from the Masnavi, that everything that we read in the Quran and the Masnavi is taking place inside us. In reading the Masnavi, we are the lion, we are the rabbit, the hare, we are the well that we leap into, and we ourselves are the redemption. It's all from us, it's all in us, and it's all for us. The us isn't some mere humanistic self, but it's a human being fashioned in the image of God, having the breath of God flowing inside us, perpetually refreshed and recast in the loving glance of Allah. If you go back to Kenan Rifai's commentary on this famous story, you see that what he's advocating isn't negating the human self, but most specifically polishing and removing the egoistic qualities of ourself. It's not that the self has to die, not that the human has to die, but that when we speak about death before dying, the death is a death of greed, the death of ego, the death of hypocrisy, the death of lust, of passion, of selfishness. What comes after that death and before the physical death, of course, is life, abundant, luminous life filled with love. And what glory emerges when that life comes. Here's what happens, Kenan Rifai says, after the selfishness has vanished. It's only then that the heart's mirror becomes divested of all of the worldly filth. And then the heart becomes a mirror, a reflector of the self-disclosure of divine essence and attributes with no limit. For the mirror of the heart, like the beauty reflected in it, has no limit. Only the heart is eternal with Him. Those who polish their hearts with the love of Allah see a different kind of beauty shining there every instant. Every breath they witness another one of God's infinite beauties. The second major adaptation that I see in the teachings of Kenan Rifai is women's participation and leadership. We're living through an extraordinary period of female leadership in many Muslim communities. Whether it's Malala Yousafzai in Pakistan, Shirin Ebadi in Iran, our own Cemal Nurhoca in Turkey, Amina Wadud in the US, as well as extraordinary female scholars like Juliane Hammer, Kisha Ali, Sachiko Murata, and many others who have widened and deepened our understanding of Islam. In this way, Kenan Rifai, along with his near contemporary Hazrat Inayat Khan of India, were pioneers. The key practice here was fellowship, sohbet, with a completed human being. The human being who has wiped the mirror of her own heart so that the beauty, Jamal, of the light of God, Nur, shines on through. It's this magical and mystical fellowship that harkens back to the sweet presence of actually sitting in the presence of the Prophet. Here we see that Kenan Rifai was remarkable among his peers. His first teacher was his mother, Valida Sultan Hadija Janan, who initiated him on the path of tasawwuf. In his case, the experience with a female murshida, not unlike Ibn Arabi, prepares him for a life of deep spiritual fellowship with women. He remembers his mother as having said to him, "You're not alone, I am with you." Towards the end of Kenan's life, he remembers yearning for the companionship of his blessed mother. Those of us that had the honor of visiting the Dargah of Kenan Rifai saw that his own room used to be the room of his mother, and that her maqam has been preserved and set aside just as his has been. Kenan Rifai was also known as having significant female disciples, including Nazla Sultan, Samia Cemal, Samia Ayvardi, Safiya Erol, Cemal Nur Hoca's mother Meshkure Hanum, Zehra Sultan, Nezihe Araz, and many others. His welcoming of female murids also crossed religious lines. One of his murids, Sofi Huri, was the daughter of a Christian priest. She famously described him as combining the majestic qualities of an Old Testament prophet combined with a waterfall of compassion and kindness. In Kenan Rifai's view of women, in the context of this spiritual fellowship, this sohbat, he says, affection for women comes from being able to witness God in the mirror of their existence. What I find particularly touching is that his appreciation of the feminine was connected to real friendship with real women. It's easy to speak of the feminine and remain ignorant of the daily trials and tribulations that society, and let's be honest, men, place on women. Kenan Rifai seems to have been a beautiful exception here. In fact, his own relationship with Samia Cemal seems to have echoes of what I have seen of the relationship between the Prophet and Hazrat Khadija. He says about her, "She was a friend with whom I could share my ideals and a human on whom I could rest my tired head." You find virtually the verbatim description about the Prophet towards Khadija. He says that his greatest joy in life was sharing spiritual knowledge with Samia Cemal. When she asked him what could she do to mirror this love back to him, his only answer was, "Love me. Love me so that I can love you." But my dear, know the meaning of what I mean by love me. Love me means love all that I love. Love all of humanity, love itself, and Allah. Was Samia Ayvardi, who has left her own indelible mark on Turkish Sufism. She, of course, was the main gateway for the late and great Anne-Marie Schimmel to this lived world of beauty. We're all gathered here because there is now a multi-generational legacy of female leadership from Kenan Rifai, passed on to Samia Ayvardi, to Mashkura Hanum, to Cemal Nursargut. This model is hard to see in many other places in the Muslim world. Ordinary blessing, witness it. We see this love, this burning of love me as one that survives death. In Kenan Rifai's own burial ground, we see him being entrusted to the Mother Earth next to his mother, surrounded by his female murids. What Kenan Rifai emphasizes about women is their extraordinary capacity for love. He connects this to the teachings of Ibn Arabi, and he connects it to the teachings of Mawlana Rumi. Most of all, he connects it to the Prophet. Men and women, he says, are two halves of a whole. We cannot become whole if our relationship with one another is broken. The third element that I see in the life of Kenan Rifai is the transfer of tasawwuf from the dargah to the university. If we take a look at a trajectory of Kenan Rifai's life, which spans 1867 to 1950, we get a better sense of the full turbulence of the Ottoman Empire and later on, the Turkish Republic. Kenan is born during the Tanzimat period. The year after he is born, the Imperial Ottoman Lycée at Galatasaray is established. The young Kenan studies there, and he's exposed to European as well as Islamic sciences. If you trace his life, you see that he was an instructor in Galatasaray, in the Iranian school, in the German supervisor of the Ministry of Postal Services. He serves as the principal of education in Balıkesir, Skopje, Trabzon, and Medina. He teaches Turkish at Fener Greek High School for 13 years. In other words, his own life mirrors Ottoman cosmopolitanism. Let's just remember that Istanbul, Asitane, the threshold, Dar-es-Saadat, the capital of the largest and most glorious of the Muslim empires, actually had a Muslim minority population until 1900. For Kenan Rifai, interaction with Jews and Christians was not abstract. He's talking about his neighbors, his friends, his students. This is what is reflected in his teaching: to serve any person, no matter what their religious background, is a means of serving Allah. It's one thing to speak theologically about pluralism. It's another thing when you've spent 12 years of your life teaching Jews and Christians. He ends up saying all religions are one in essence, ranging from the primitive religion to that of Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Islam. They're all one in the forms of meaning. He famously opens himself up again and again to incorporate knowledge, wisdom, beauty, and truth, learning 8 languages: Turkish, French, German, Arabic, Persian, Greek, Circassian, and the last one, English, which he starts learning at age 80. As the world around him changes, he continues to adapt his own understanding, even as he remains rooted in the Ottoman Sufi tradition. He says, what we considered as being right yesterday is proven to be wrong today. Tomorrow as well, we will realize that what we know today is wrong or incomplete. In fact, progress demands this. Progress, of course, is one of the code words of the 19th century. It can and has been used to convey a triumphalist, Eurocentric march towards one model of Western modernity. Kenan Rifai seems to have had a much more subtle understanding of progress, the need to open up to advances in scientific learning while preserving the spiritual and mystical treasures of the Islamic tradition. He says, to deal with the content of the unseen world is not possible with the understandings of the previous century. The noblest behavior of our century is to accept its incompleteness in explaining the truth. So let's think about this move out of the dargah, and I'll conclude here. Of course, we know the turbulent history out of the Ottoman period. The Sultanate is abolished in 22, the Caliphate in 24, the madrasas are shut down, and in 1925 there's a crackdown on Sufi dargah-based Sufism. This is the turbulent world in which Kenan Rifai is coming to adulthood. Tasawwuf had been woven into the very fabric of Ottoman society at every scholarly, mystical, popular, and political level. If Tasawwuf were to survive in the Republican period, it would have to find new roots in this new soil. So he undertakes the decision that in retrospect has proven to be powerful and visionary. He makes the decision to shift the focus of Sufi life from the traditional dergah to the university. Amma akademi olarak açılardır. The academy will open the way, he says. We see the continuation of this practice under Cemal Nur's leadership. Turked has been extraordinarily active in the promotion of scholarship on Sufism, whether in establishing the professorship at UNC, filled by Juliane Hammer, to the chair at Beijing University. Turked has operated some of the most visible conferences for the study of Sufism on figures ranging from Mawlana Rumi, Rumi and Women, Sultan Veled, Shams Tabrizi, Abul Hasan Harakani, and many others. These conferences begin to bring together distinguished Turkish scholars and international scholars and continue Kenan Rifai's mission of bringing the Sufi tradition from the Dargah to the academy. In short, the life of Kenan Rifai, whose Dargah was the last Dargah to be built in Istanbul in 1908, traces the life of a dervish, one foot remaining firmly planted in the richness of the ancient path of overflowing divine love. The other foot whirling around the world, keeping up with this rapidly changing universe that we find ourselves in. The skill and grace with which Kenan Rifai carried out this dance has made him one of the most relevant Sufi masters of the 20th century. And now, with Cemal Nur Hoca, this legacy spills over to the 21st. May this legacy continue to shed a beautiful light onto the places in this world that are most in need of this teaching. Aşk olsun.
And now I'm very pleased and privileged to introduce Dr. Cangüzel Güner Zülfikar, who will be talking to us about the teaching and training methods of Kenan Rifai. And I just have to say that not only have I enjoyed the friendship and the company and the wisdom of Cangüzel for almost 20 years, but also I'm indebted to her because one time when I was teaching a class on Sufism, she brought a special friend to lecture to my class, and that was Cemal Nur Hoca. The teacher, at the end of the class, the students didn't say much about the teacher, the assistant, but they thought the guest lecture was terrific. So let me, without further comment, introduce Cangüzel, who will talk to us about Kenan Rifai's teaching and training methods. Cangüzel.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kenan Rifai Hazretlerinin Mürşitliği ve Mürebbiliği. Kur'an-ı Hakîm'in beyanıyla ağaçlar kalem ve denizler mürekkep olsa insan-ı kamili anlatmaya yetmeyecektir. Kehf suresi 109. ayet. Kendilerini takdim haddimiz değildir. Sadece öğrenmeye gayretini niyazdayız efendim. Kenan bin Abdülhalim er-Rifâî Büyük Aksoy sadece adı bile kaç dönemin izini taşımaktadır. Hayatının 64 yılını zahiri ve batini hocalık yaparak yaşamıştır. Kenan Rifai'nin biyografisi tebliğimizin planını şekillendiriyor. Tebliğimizin konusu Kenan Rifai'nin terbiye, eğitim, tedris, öğretim yöntemleridir. Kendilerinin sohbetleri ve talebeleri Samiha Ayverdi, Nezihe Araz, Safiye Erol, Sofi Huri hanımefendilerin kendilerinin irtihalinden sonra yazdıkları Kenan Rifai ve 20. asrın ışığında Müslümanlık kitaplarından seçkilerin derlemesini sunacağım. Osmanlı Devleti'nin tebaası olarak 1867'de Kenan bin Abdülhalim ismiyle doğmuştur. Türkiye Cumhuriyeti Devleti'nin vatandaşı olarak Kenan Büyükaksoy 1950'de vefat etmiştir. Osmanlı topraklarında doğudan batıya, kuzeyden güneye kadar pek çok farklı coğrafya ve iklimde marif kadrolarında öğretmenlik ve okul müdürlükleri, marif müdürlükleri görevlerinde bulunmuştur. Telif ve tercüme eserleri vardır. Mesela Balıkesir'de fen ve tabiat bilimleri ile ilgili Fransızcadan yaptığı tercümelerle Muktezai Hayat isimli bir eseri yazmıştır. Diğer basılmış eserleri Rehber-i Salikin, Yolda Olanlara Rehber, Tuhfe-i Kenan, Kenan'ın Hediyeleri, Ahmed er-Rifâî, İlahiyat-ı Kenan, kendilerinin ilahileri, Şerhli Mesnevi-i Şerif, basılmamış eserleri Türklere Arapça, Araplara Türkçe öğretmek ve Fransızcaya yaptıkları hadis-i şerif tercümeleridir. Kendileri Numune-i Terakki Müdürü iken Tercüman-ı Hakikat gazetesinde çıkan pedagoji makaleleri ve
his other works are published and the authorities perceived a threat and his house was raided and they were collected by the authorities. He witnessed 3 different kinds of administrations. Absolute monarchy, the first and second constitutional monarchies, and the republic. The invasions of the house due to the palace of suspicion crowded around him caused him to open his lodge and teachings and a training place. So he named his dargah after his mother's name and called the place Kenan's mother. His resources are the Quran and the Prophet. In his lodge, he performed Quran commentaries, sohbets, discourses, zikr ceremonies, and the works of Ibn Arabi, Rumi, Niyazi Misri, and Yunus Emre. When the revolution of the Republic banned the Sufi lodges in 1925, he locked the door of his lodge without any hesitancy or resistance. And his visionary statement about this ban lays out the foundation of our period. From now on, he said, on the lodge is under the sky, and I will be teaching and continuing to train in the academia in the classes filled with both men and women. I will even teach them different things. About the ban of closing the lodges, he stated, before we were the instrument in the external lodge, we were busy with the zikr of Allah. Now we are in the lodge of the heart with the illuminated heart. Allah wanted so and did so. Since all happens from Him, all is nice. Now the body is the lodge and the illuminated heart is filled with the divine light of beauty. This is what he said. When his renowned disciple Samiha Ayverdi's works began to be published by 1938, her Mürşit Kenan Rifai stated, Dear Samiha, she reopened my lodge by her books. This proves how his teachings are free of place and location, and he continues doing his teachings. In 2009, as a blessing from Allah, I witnessed in the North Carolina of the United States, in the first state university of the United States, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that was a chair was founded on Kenan Rifai's Islamic studies, and another one followed in China, and in this regard, Omid Safi here provided valuable information. On his commentary on Mevlânâ'yı, this big volume, was created by Dr. Victoria Holbrook, and this became famous in the United States, and by the prestigious publication house Fonds Vitae in 2001. Many professors who use this book as a textbook, and myself, I used this book as a textbook myself, and my students learned a lot from it. The positivist dichotomy between East and West, he transcends this dichotomy, and recreation of the Silk Road between East and West. He says the sky is being revived. His first murshid is his mother, Hatice Cenan Valide Sultan. She trained and prepared her son by her famous statement, "You will love people, for within you there are infinite treasures of forgiveness, mercy, and indulgence. Therefore, you'll not only love humans, but all of creation with the same untiring speed and infinite fervor. You must spend the gems in you bounteously. You must love humans by having them share with each other, and by being together with them in both their mistakes and their good deeds. You must be of them to such extent that you increase with their births and decrease with their deaths. Your duty as a human is to turn people's faces towards a common, sincere goal, an ideal, and there are many ways to do this, but the shortest and the best way is the path of love and faith. A limitless love of humanity. Human nature's only door to peace is always this. Humans can only reach maturity, perfection, from human nature to divinity, in short, reach Allah only and only with this path." Adham Shah of Filibe is the murshid of both Hatice Cenan Sultan and Kenan Rifai, who prepared Kenan Rifai for his future duties when he was appointed to Balıkesir. And Adham Shah of Filibe is not a traditional sheikh of a tariqa, and he was not interested in them. In the Kubelta dictionary of İlhan Ayverdi, the term murshid is defined as the guide, leader, and the example for his disciples who are on the path of truth and reality, who enlightens and guides them. Sheikh. And the great murshid is the Prophet. The perfected murshid or the knowing murshid are those who spiritually inherited the reality of the Prophet, the truth from the Prophet, Insan al-Kamil. The term Mürebbiliği is described as the one who trains, educates, and in Tasawwuf, Mürebbiliği is the murshid. I'm explaining this specifically for the young audience here. Kenan Rifai explained the reasons of coming to this world in the following quote. In the pre-eternity, before we were created, we each had a bowl in our hands, but while coming here, our bowls were taken and we were told, go and seek. So we are on the path of searching, and we came to this world to search ourselves. We would be finding Allah when we find ourselves. Kenan Rifai's training and teaching methods can be collected under two main titles: teaching by living and teaching with love. One day he asked to his disciples, "Children, am I gossiping? If I gossip, you also gossip. Am I lying? If I do, so you do. Am I breaking hearts? If I am breaking hearts, go ahead and you break hearts too. Am I holding a grudge? Am I in arrogance or jealousy? If I do these, you are permitted to do so. But if you know me as your teacher, isn't it denying my spiritual rights over you when you act by any trait that I don't have?" We can find the answers to the questions, and these questions are answers to what kind of people we want. His disciples reported that his perspective was, since the door is doer is the truth, then everyone is only a means in his command. They wrote his statement, I'd like to hold the hand of those with good deeds and wish to help those who fall. And Azize had told that. About their teacher, Samiha Ayverdi and Nezihe Araz, he's an entrepreneur and he's determined. He acts speedily from a shortcut with an unseen effort and seriousness to realize a determined goal. Before concluding, he would not be relieved. However, when certain obstacles occur repeatedly in one of his attempted tasks, then he would interpret it as a sign and does not insist and abandons it by saying, because there is nothing other than the truth, and it is the truth which appears from the creation. Allah's revelatory means are endless. This is how he gives up. Again, Samiha Ayverdi and Nezihe Araz quote from their teacher, do not remain stuck at the point wherever you are. Advance. Advance however much you can. Do not let your life simply be an advancement to the grave. Walk, always walk. Only Allah knows if the death will catch you on the path. At least let it not be when you stop. And there is a verse in Quran that Allah is always in some kind of occurrence. Kenan Rifai says, as long as I shall live, I either learn a thing or I shall teach a thing. Don't keep information to yourself. Be jealous of teaching and don't be negligent of learning. The person who hides knowledge to himself is a shame for humankind. Learn and teach. Now, I'd like to, based on his teaching, let's read it from his own expressions. Don't be proud of your knowledge, because just like everything else that is gained in this world, no knowledge would be taken away from you in a day. Why are you offended and upset? Why are you hating as if you experienced animosity? Abandon turning around your egotistical desires and addictions like the polytheists worshipping and turning around their idols. Don't be tied up to those with love and that should be shown to the eternals and praise more than their value and be keen. For this, in a hadith al-Sharif, the Prophet said, work for this world for as long as you will remain here, work for hell however much fire you can handle. Again, Kenan Rifai, care about setting examples to bring people near to Allah, not to alienate them. The issues of Islam are not the empty and narrow thoughts that would not be valued. For example, you come across a person who's filled with materialistic information, but his spiritual world is completely empty and he is spiritually untrained. To save this man who is spiritually ignorant and to wake him up from aberration and heedlessness, it is necessary to first be level in enlightening him and to not look down upon his knowledge. On the contrary, show him respect and even encourage them to advance in their knowledge. It is not the Prophet, is it not the Prophet Muhammad who stated, work for this world as if you will never die and work for the hereafter as if you will die immediately? Is it not the Prophet who also commanded, seeking knowledge is obligatory for both women and men? If those who work for the advancement and unification of Islam do not say to those around them, embrace materialistic knowledge and conduct as much as spiritual knowledge, they are responsible and sinners. Today, while humankind is creating wonders in the material world, how shameful it is for a Muslim to be ignorant of those and leaving the discoveries, findings, and various teachings and intellectuals' activities to the others. Was it like this among the Muslims? Now, we have also started to have more people filled with materialistic knowledge, and among them there are those who are not content only with material, whose diplomas do not satisfy their inner emptiness. Is it fair to extinguish this person's need, hope, and excitement with empty and strict behaviors when all they wish for is to have a spiritual capital for their spirit's climate? The one who is in the lead by claiming to be the guide, when they look at the seeker and frown, saying, what kind of clothing is this? Take off these narrow pants. Wear a larger one. Wear properly like in the time of Prophet. Be with beautiful manners. Do not go to cinemas or theaters. Don't send your family as well. Don't even consider to wear gold on your teeth, in such ignorant and unsupported words, rejecting the seeker even before reaching the gate of the spiritual world that he is thirsting for, is not a betrayal of the spiritual of Islam. Why emphasize wearing clothes according to Prophet's time, but not live according to the conduct of the Prophet? The measurement of the conduct is not clothing, it is the unity. Turbans, baggy pants, these would not take anyone to the heaven of heart. However, the conduct of Muhammad opens the gates of order and peace for both worlds, because the Prophet came to humankind to complete the beautiful conduct and to be emanated and taught. He was not sent to discipline the clothing. Sadly, this is not known by mullahs, and they call these who know infidels. The Prophet states, Allah looks at your hearts, not at your faces. Therefore, the task is to have the pure heart. If you have taken on the responsibility of being a teacher, a guide, don't be ignorant of those who come to learn from you. You shouldn't be aware of their worldly knowledge. Be with such capital. Be like the Sulaiman who knew every bird's language, because your duty is not to distance but to bring closer. Things that do not change in Islam are fundamentals, not the details. Teach human maturity to people you face and show this with your behavior as well. In fact, unity is the summit, the last step of this excellence. The goal and the result of beautiful conduct is the correctness of intentions, which directs human beings to think of not only themselves but also others, and to realize the goal of creation by working for the benefit of human beings. One of his students, Safi Erol, says, my teacher Kenan Rifai used to say, it is harder to remove a bad habit than to flatten mountains. For this reason, my teacher followed the system of endowing good habits to his students. He would inject the good habits frequently so that there would be no place for bad habits. When the abundance of these good habits covers the foundation, bad habit situation worsens, becomes in fact impossible. One of the principles my teacher infused persistently was to do the things that needed to be done on time and in the manner in which they should be done, and to avoid the things that must not be done. A student he saved from negativity would not just stay in the neutrality, harmless and meaningless. She or he would immediately start doing good deeds. My teacher, Kenan Rifai, spread the manner of being vigilant to life's daily disciplines. For those who do not respect time, he said, about those who do not respect the time, he said, some people are not bound with time. They do not adjust their time and responsibilities to each other. They reach the port and realize that the ferry has already gone. That's perhaps the last ferry. Those who waste time in heedlessness and miss the last ferry for opportunity are in disappointment. It is all right if there's another ferry scheduled. The short-sighted traveler has had a narrow escape after a troublesome wait. But what if it is the last one? There is no cure for that. Safiya Erol also describes her Mürşit as in the following lines. The Mürebbiliği, or trainer or educator, whom we call Mürşit with the religious nature, does not force us externally. They reside at the mihrab of our personality. We don't receive the Mürşit's voice externally. Mürşit speaks from inside our spirit. We realize our lives to the extent that we listen to our Mürşit. If and when we don't listen to this, we know that this act is only to paralyze ourselves. How does that happen? How did we not see other people as better than us until we met our Mürşit? Of course we have. Therefore, what is the secret of his complete dominancy? And the answer is the Mürşit is not an individual. They are tangible example of qualities and virtues that keep a community alive. By understanding part of a whole, he's always there and he's always ready. And he's always looking. When we are awake, the Mürşit's eyes are on us. Mürşit hears our every word and is the eternal witness to our nightly dreams and our dreamless sleeps. Mürşit is the voiceless jury passing verdict on even the smallest gestures. This is how she described her mentor. Kenan Rifai asks, there are things that please everyone. Do you know what pleases me? My pleasure finds superbness when I don't hate or I'm now distinguished by anyone. When I meet a well-seeing eye, when I accept everything with tranquility, and when I do not give any value to anything more than their worth. According to Mother Samiha and Nezihe Araz, in order to offer the education and training which Kenan Rifai first wanted to deliver to the masses, he accepted to establish peace in people within themselves and then establish the harmony and justice in their relationships with society. From an end to Suleiman, he loved and respected every creature. In that respect, he saw and showed that plurality is a curtain and oneness, unity, is the origin. Incidentally, first, what would be more appropriate than having an agreement for people within themselves and then directing them to become friends and fellows with all of creation, since the beginning of every controversy is duality and separation. He would see the spiritual and material as the two faces of the same sword, and thus in an indivisible togetherness. For this reason, he would work hard in order to make the person he had enriched in the circle of his training become a good person of community and a successful value on a global level. This savant who addressed all kinds of spiritual illnesses through his knowledge and limitless understanding would first consider with astute discernment of all possibilities of feelings and willpower the sum of all material and spiritual factors. And upon reaching a conclusion, he would immediately apply the first salve, put on the first plaster upon the features he has determined needed to be eliminated. And he certainly tries to make up for the person, and he would put together all the cracks and protect the personality from fading away. It is possible to try to explain that because he could see and observe the sickness of every person in his existence and thus find a way to cure this illness through his own experiences and classifications. If this were to be explained with a statement of old, it would be called training of the nafs. We call it the reconstruction of the personality from the very beginning. Kenan Rifai says, many teachers would train their students through effort, discipline, and various ordeals. As for me, I underwent their ordeals myself. His students relate, the matter at hand was the suitability and harmony between what a person said and did. He had attained the ease and skill of applying his goal by his daily life, and he wanted to see the ones he raised in this way as well. For example, he would direct someone's thought to an orderly direction and would thus help them attain an orderly life. At the same time, he would try to make them gain the habit of keeping their rooms and even their clothes orderly as well. Or he would say, clean your houses, but also clean your interiors, and go to your appointments on time, because this is a small but important indicator of keeping the pre-eternal promise. Thus saying, he would try to bring his wisdom and observations to our lives. The fundamental principle he paid the most attention to in training was to keep in mind the conditions in which people were and the differences of temperament and the environment, and to move without disturbing personal taste and capabilities and without pressuring anyone's personal characteristics. For this reason, he would not compel proclivities and desires into directions opposite to what they were, and never chose a system of suppression and violence. As an ideal teacher, in essence, he never thought of putting anyone into his point of view with beyond intellectual, and he said, we are ordered to think positively about people. He would enjoy positive interpretations. When someone thinks negatively about us, this hurts me before anyone else. Everyone is the architect of their own building. The joy, pain, good, bad, heaven and hell that people find are all due to their well or poorly constructed buildings. The conclusion we reach is solely our responsibility, not anybody else's. If we have made our bodies buildings with rotten materials and mischiefs, one day it will collapse onto itself. His system of education and training was never one-sided. He would teach while learning and learn while teaching. As a giving teacher, he never put himself in a role where he was always active and those in front of him were the receivers in a passive and unchanging plan. The give and take between the teacher and the student must always be mutual and occur in equal conditions. He was always pleased with the tiring questions coming from those around him. He never said a word to be assertive or insistent, and when he believed that his words truly carried value, he had readily taken the chance to speak of and explain it. If reality was already obvious in an argument, but he was someone stubborn and insistent, he would forego the argument with a sweet excuse. He would always regard others' thoughts with importance and would accept the criticisms of his youngest and most inexperienced students with a soft understanding and said, "I have no greater joy than to be defeated by the truth." Dogmatic faith was not acceptable in his view. He would continually and happily repeat Hazrat Ali's words, "I will not worship a God I cannot see." One of the features we must pay attention, as Samiha Ayverden Neziha Ara states, Kenan Rifai made use of the elements of religion and faith, especially in the work of Irshad that he had accepted throughout his life, because for him, the truly faithful man was the most trustworthy element of social harmony and the sturdiest safety valve. Since humanity has no limits, sex or nationalities, the only face that we can rely on under the sky is the face of truly and sincerely faithful. For this reason, Kenan Rifai always saw religion in an influential position in the formation and development of humans' conscience and the treatment of humans' dispositions. This great human eased every inconvenience and problem of his drama of life with a smile. He embraced those who were lost in pessimism and hopelessness and who were mixed up due to doubt and presumptions with a soft and warm faith and brought them to themselves. But his constructive and creative intellect never incubated over religious theories that had been ossified due to political, social, and geographic reasons and assassinations of fundamentalism. On the contrary, he had broken the shell and brought forward the jewel into light. Kenan Rifai is a person who saw and showed the matter of religion and faith within the purity, simplicity, and dynamism of tasawwuf. The religion he believed in was like the armies that carried the light of unity to India and China on one arm, and to Iran on another, and to Andalus on yet another arm. It was like a force that brought a just and equalizing social order to places who were oppressed, and when it went on spiritual conquest, it was one that would go through without affecting local and traditional ways of living, without oppressing anyone, and without interfering in the various individual tastes and features. As an educator, Kenan Rifai saw that a mess that has been severed from its past is not an appropriate basis for the realities of humanity to find form and develop. A community that severs its ties with its past and is robbed of this past might be going towards an advanced technique, but probably towards barbarity. He saw that the life of community who denied their past was short, and every step forward can be made with stepping on what we lived in the past. According to him, every new and forward step can be taken based on the past. The mistaken perception that he was ill with the idea of returning to past should not be thought. For his nature and his personality, the conditions of maturity did not allow for this. What he wanted us to take every step with the help of the values that had been clarified throughout the centuries, and to advance while benefiting from the experiences of a life that had accounted for every moment. In he used every method of training in an order, using the opportunities, giving advice, art events. He says, I wrote, drew, grew, gave classes, opened a lodge, told with instruments, told with words. I told stories, I played games. I kept repeating the same thing. I wanted the same thing. One day, a Greek pharmacist we came across kissed his hand with great excitement and fondness, saying, "My teacher, do you not recognize me? You saved my future." He was the only Turkish teacher to object to the Court of Honor's decisions to expel the student at the Fenerum High School. Despite the other Greek teachers, he had said, "I will be involved with him in whatever is necessary. Forgive him this time. I will be responsible for his later misdeeds." The Court of Honor accepted this offer and left the student to him, and the pharmacist he saw in front of him was this very child. Is it proper to waste? Loving is knowing, and people would know and see in line with their capacity. Loving is infinitely loving, and the truth that he wanted to light in people was this: and he used love as the most fundamental method. I might be exploiting my time. Ibn Arabi says, "The one who believes with the belief of every believer possesses universal faith." Kenan Rifai writes the following in a letter: "Unlike a spring that flows into its own, whoever wants can satisfy their thirst from me. It is not my responsibility if one comes with a small bucket, another with a big barrel, or a third with a cup. I fill up whatever container is handed to me, but everyone receives the amount that their container allows. I'm not coy in giving to anyone, and I do not distinguish one from another." And Samiha Ayverdi, in the preface of his book, the humanity, Ikhlas and Iman, the heaven of these is what he was inviting people to. On every page there are wisdoms, and it is an endless treasure, and it's an interpretation of Quran, and we have a lot to learn from him. In this world, he has lived the cases of the case, and both internally and externally, and he let them experience an endless mercy. He teaches by saying and living, this great and true friend, and he gives examples from within the life, and he continues teaching and training. It is the truth. It is the truth that in every age, all kinds of state systems have been afraid of a sincere mutasawwif. Even a theocratic administration, which at face value should be most tolerant towards religion, feels a deep fear and timidity towards the mutasawwif, who has understood deeply the fundamentals of religion. For this reason, it would want to raise a self-interested fanatical class anchored in the dogmatism of the madrasa, so that the knowledgeable religious men who are willing to risk their lives do not multiply and hinder the interest of those who make an issue of them. For both his trainings and teachings, he always called people to think, not to believe first. And he lets the thinker decide. He never overwhelms the personalities, and he reconstructs the personalities, and he planted the seeds of this bountiful future. And I respect, and for witnessing this, I thank Allah for eternally, and for the infinite love, protection, and mercy. I salute you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zülfikar, and also Dr. Safi. And we now have a...
Dr. Safi ve bütün konuşmacılarımıza teşekkür ederim. Şimdi küçük bir aramız var.
Efendim bir 20 dakikalık aramız var. Buçukta burada olmak üzere.
We have a break for 20 minutes. Please be back in 20 minutes.